Well, 2024 turned out better than most of us expected it. After 2020, I was convinced that there would be some sort of a black swan event that would deprive us of having a free and fair election. But we saw what a free and fair election, mostly free and fair, I think, can look like in our country. But as Ronald Reagan said, freedom is not free. And we've learned that we have to fight to preserve our freedoms every day if we're going to keep them. Harry Haury does that. He leads an organization called Unite for Freedom. He has been on The Truth before. He is an elections integrity advocate and activist. Harry, welcome back to The Truth. So nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again as well, John.
So there's been a lot of things that have happened just lately in the elections sphere. For one thing, ownership of Dominion changed hands. Tell us what you know about that. And is that a good thing, or do we not know yet?
Well, I don't think we know yet. I mean, the person that's the outside in front individual was, here in St. Louis County, an elections commissioner. I think it was county, maybe it was the city. During the time he was here, I was out of country mostly. So the fact of the matter is that it's too early to tell. I don't think we have transparency yet on where the money and the moving forces are that have consolidated this. It could be very good. It could be not good. So I don't know.
I think I read that he is considered to be a conservative, maybe possibly one of us, I think.
I don't know, just to be clear. I mean, obviously I'm part of this area's politics, right? And there's a lot of people that don't consider him to be, quote, true conservative. But, we have this controversy all the time about what's a true conservative and what's not a true conservative. There are too many vectors to characterize somebody generally often. And I think time will tell. The issue is, are they going to be transparent? Are they going to let somebody look at the source code? Are they going to clean it up? Is there going to be a mea culpa about the nonsense that we know is in the source code or not?
That's what I would like to know. Does this not present an opportunity for some forensic software analysts to come in and actually look and see where the vulnerabilities were in 2020 and maybe whether they can determine whether they were exploited or not?
Yes, the answer to that is yes. I mean, it's a perfect opportunity, assuming that the evidence is still there, but I think that there will be. It's very hard to cover, digital tracks completely, particularly if people have not been preparing for it completely. We do have issues with regard to, where was this actually happening? The indications are that there were, at least foreign connections on a live basis to these systems. And, were they just querying the systems or were they actually tampering with the systems? I mean, there's a lot of things that people, hypothesize about, but very few what you would call forensic evidence items that prove that something particular has happened. I'm an advocate for investigation of all these things, as you know. I'm also an advocate for making sure that we stay inside the guardrails of what the information is that we have available to us at the moment. Speaking the truth is not always easy when people on one side and the other side are screaming and yelling and throwing, political bombs at each other. It's often hard to keep your calm and perspective on all these items. From a cyber forensic perspective, though, the tracks will be out there. If somebody allows a true forensic investigation of the history of the source code, the history of the actual deployments and the systems, it'll be able to be found. It's very, very difficult unless you roll over a machine with a steamroller and then incinerate the fragments to actually hide all of the information. So, but we do know that it can be made difficult. I think we have a former vice president and secretary of state that learned how to use bleach bit to hide data. So it's it's a an interesting situation. I remain hopeful. Our St. Louis chapter is reaching out to him right now to have a conversation because we are here based in the same city he is. So and just to be clear, we have a history of honest investigations of real data. We try not to overblow what we find, but a lot of what we find is very troubling. So it becomes a difficult area of conversation.
So where was Dominion headquartered before this guy bought it? And what is this guy's name, by the way?
It's Leondecker is his last name, and Liberty is located here. There is a company called No Inc. that's been rolling up these various election systems for some time. No Inc. was not under the control of Leondecker, so we don't really have transparency yet, at least that I'm aware of. Someone may be more up to date on some of the particulars than I am, but the fact is that there are some disturbing connections on where money might have come from, and I'm not trying to defame anyone. I'm just trying to say that we need to understand this. The history is quite contorted. The Venezuelan connection, the Serbian connection. The fact that people that did do source code analysis found stubs from, stubs are communication areas in the code that deal with connecting to Serbia, connecting to various parties in the U.S., connecting to even the Chinese Communist Party. Those stubs are out there, or at least there's indications that they were, and someone needs to
You
look at.
call those stubs?
A stub is a pre-configured mechanism for communication. Sometimes this is a backdoor, sometimes it's completely legitimate, but you've got to understand what it is, and you got to understand under what level of authority this communication link was implemented, and was it secure? I mean, secure in the sense that others couldn't eavesdrop on it. Secure also in the sense that did it allow some sort of uncontrolled editing of data, injection of data, these types of things. This is what we would look at if we were looking at the server logs and data images on the drives or the flash drives. But no one's really done a thorough job of that. Go ahead.
Two things about Dominion that really have troubled me that no one's resolved to my satisfaction. One is we were told in no uncertain terms that the Dominion machines could not be reached on the internet. Then, lo and behold, in Coffee County, Georgia, the head of the elections, or the I guess the head of the polling precinct, called with a problem relating to the Dominion machines. And son of a gun, if the repairman didn't show up in the parking lot and applied the fixes on his laptop in his car. Well, that leads one to believe that the only way you could do that would be to reach that computer through the internet. Yet they told us that you couldn't do that. So that was a lie.
Yeah, there's a lot of lies with regard to connectedness to networks, a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, when somebody starts lying to you, you wonder, the first question is why. And then if you're lying about that, then what else is the person lying about? But the other thing that really bothers me, and I've been in technology all my life, I haven't been in high tech, I've been in low tech. My company sells output devices. That's a fancy word for copiers and printers because we're too ashamed to tell people we sell copiers. So we sell output devices. But anyway, we represent Konica Minolta, and they're great machines. But we also sell a lot of software, and we sell software that you can put documents through the scanner on top of your copier, and you can digitally scan those. And we've got software that can also interpret things that you have put on that piece of paper. Like, for instance, if you go to a high school or college and the professor or teacher is giving a multiple choice exam, our software can read what boxes the students check. Sounds kind of like a ballot, doesn't it? Leading me to ask the question, why do we need a QR code that no one can break or interpret, to my knowledge? And you go vote, you get a nice little piece of paper back that is your ballot, that you look to see if it's scored correctly. And then it's got the QR code on there. And the fact of the matter is, I am told that the reader reads the QR code, and that's where your actual ballot choices reside, not on the printed ballot with the X in the box. What's going on? Why is that? Now, my software can read the X in the box and it can score based on that and tabulate. Why do we need a QR code? And isn't that a source of concern?
So, again, we're opening a whole range of issues here, but the QR codes are not generally human readable. A person that's trained over years can recognize certain elements of a QR code based on, just simple human pattern recognition. The reason they use QR codes instead of a ballot scanner for that purpose is that the QR codes are more reliably read by computers than ballots with check marks. That said,
Well, I can tell you, we got 99.9% certainty in our sca- scanning, and so much that a multi-hundred-million-dollar restaurant chain has used our software to read their accounts payable invoices, which automatically write the check and make the journal entries. So they must have some pretty high degree of confidence in that software. And I've worked with it for 30 years, and I can tell you it's pretty much bulletproof. Ergo, we don't need a damn QR code.
absolutely not. We do not need a QR code.
Can't someone break that QR code and interpret it? And isn't that a potential source for devilment? And it seems to me that if you got a Georgia Tech computer scientist, you could unravel that QR code in about 30 minutes, maybe. No?
Probably faster, because
Yeah.
at least most of them are not human readable, but generally are standard machine readable items. Uh, so the QR code opens up all sorts of vulnerabilities. Does the QR code agree with what you see on the paper? I mean, it tells you how you voted, right? But if it's reading the QR code, how do you know that that QR code is transmitting how you voted? The answer is you do not. The second piece of the QR code is it exposes vulnerabilities with regard to identity. We know for a fact that some ballots in some states have the name of the person voting on them in barcode form.
Well, that's illegal.
It should be illegal, but it's being done.
That's flagrantly no. It is flagrantly illegal. We have a private confidential ballot in this country. You go into the machine. When I was started to vote, you pulled a curtain. Youngsters don't have a clue what I'm talking about. You
You
pulled a
pull the
curtain. You had a
levers.
mechanical machine, and you'd pull a lever for the person you wanted to vote for. And you could even pull one big lever that would pull all the Republican levers or all the Democratic levers. So you could vote a straight party ballot if you wanted to. Things have changed.
Yep, no question about it. So I think when it comes right down to it, though, we have a situation where our federal agency that's in charge, the two agencies that are in charge in making sure that this is a safe and secure system, the CISA, the federal agency in charge of general cybersecurity measures and recommendations for the country, and the EAC, the Election Assistance Commission, who's responsible for the certification of devices and software, by the way, has just not done their job. Is it in? We call it AIM or MIA, or the election officials or the cybersecurity people MIA. So is it malice? Is it ignorance, or is it just apathy? It's hard to tell, But the fact of the matter is, what's being done is preposterous. I mean, we have machines that are insecure. We have people running them that don't know how to manage them from a security perspective. They're blatantly lying to us about whether they're connected to the internet. By the way, most people don't know what the internet means. So the internet network is where it comes from, and it was developed by DARPA. The basic components of the internet are routers and networks that can connect with each other. These systems are connected by our government to the internet. The Albert sensors that are installed broadly are agent-based systems that monitor the devices, for good or for ill. I'm not talking about whether they should even be there at the moment, but the fact of the matter is, for the Albert sensors to work, you have to have a connection to the internet. For people to do updates to software over the wire, so to speak, or over Wi-Fi, or over the cell phone that the guy had in the parking lot you're talking about in Georgia, it has to be connected to an internet. This is not the World Wide Web. It's not your browser. It's not any of that stuff. It's a connection in an open network. An open network means that it can interconnect. They talk about Verizon's, private network. They talk about AT&T's private network. They talk about the EMS or emergency, management system private network. They talk about the FEMA networks. Those are all internets. They are not the World Wide Web with a browser. But does that mean that they're secure? The whole process, the prohibition is on internetworking, connecting the device to any other external network. That's the prohibition. They pull all sorts of nonsense with their sophistry about defining what something is. The World Wide Web, we used to have to put in www on a browser. That was to designate a section of the internet, not the whole internet, a piece of the internet. Everybody says it's not connected to the browsers. That's not the same as saying it's not connected to an internet. It's prohibited.
That's good information to know.
It's been prohibited almost from the beginning, and they don't care. They don't care what the law is. And then they say the Albert sensors are safe. Is that right? Are they a certified part of the election system? No. They are not. They're not part of a state certification. I don't even know what certifications they've met. But I will tell you, the government has a history of putting agent-based systems in place that are completely insecure. SolarWinds and CrowdStrike are two of the largest hacks of the U.S. government in history, and they were both agent-based systems. Agent-based systems are independent systems that sit on your network that monitor usually at a root level, which means the lowest level of privilege, which means the highest level of command authority. The lowest level are rooted in your system. The whole idea that these systems are being put out there is nonsense. And I talk to people all the time. Who is it that's smart enough in the normal election office to administer these cybersecurity problems or issues? The fact is, most election commissions don't even have cybersecurity staff on staff. And I will tell you, because I have years of experience in cybersecurity, if you have an open system and you have loose operational security boundaries and you have nobody that understands how to administer the system properly, you do not have a secure system, period. So how do they get around this? The states certify them on their own, in contravention to the law. EAC issues waivers as if they have the authority to contravene the law. They don't have the authority to contravene the law. These are complete nonsense, and we've been, everybody wants us to trust the system. I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard trust the system. It's
Yeah.
always a game, right?
Yeah.
A sham.
Trust me while I steal your wallet. Let me ask you, before we run out of time, and we don't have much left, but I want to get to about four things. And so let's see how efficiently we can unpack these. But in 2020, if you look at the CISA spreadsheets or tabulations, if you will, in the middle of the night, you can see vast numbers of votes being shifted. Trump goes down, Biden goes up. And it seems to me very clear that someone was screwing with our election. Now, I haven't validated those documents, but they've come to me from a number of sources that I deem reliable, and it looks pretty clear and convincing to me. Supposedly, and all sorts of rumors were swirling, and I guess they still do, that these results were being manipulated in Venezuela and in Serbia, and that there were whistleblowers. Now, have the whistleblowers, any of them, now come forward, or any of them in the United States, and able to tell their stories without fear of reprisal?
So there are people that have interviewed the whistleblowers that are starting to talk on places like X, and and do we trust them or not? Is it being conveyed correctly or not? I don't know that it really matters. And the reason I say that, it is important to have these corroborating witnesses. That's not what I mean. What I mean is we have independent proof. For the reasons you just cited with regard to the changing, we did something that's called the vote tampering report. And we have them on all of our states. And this is a look at voter histories. Voter histories are changing. In one state, we find hundreds of thousands of vote changes in December of 2022, and people always look at me like, "Well, that's just some correction associated with the election." No, it's not. Those changes were to the 2020 history, done in
Wow.
2022. They're
Damn.
covering something up. This is the only explanation. There were at least errors that they're trying to hide. We then look in 2022 with the election results, we find voter histories being changed everywhere.
Have you looked? Do you have those on Georgia?
Yes, we do. It's called the vote tampering report for
I
Georgia.
sure would like to take a look at that old attorney general's race down there.
We unfortunately can't tell you what the effect was because all we know is the voter history has changed.
All right. So, are these whistleblowers in the United States right now, or any of them?
I have reason to believe that they're all in the United States except one former Serbian politician that needs to be brought to the United States as quickly as possible.
So, my question is, why have they not gone and spoken to a U.S. attorney, provide their information, and open an investigation so we can get to the damn bottom of this? We've got a Republican administration. We've got what we believe is an honest uh, Justice Department. Why aren't we unpeeling this? Not because we're going to relitigate 2020, but I personally want to know what happened, because I've devoted, not as much as you, but I've devoted an inordinate amount of time to Georgia elections integrity for 2020. And I've seen a lot of evidence. And I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that the elections were stolen. Now, having said that, I want the American people to know it. And why do I want them to know it? So that it will never happen again. And I would still like accountability for the people that did it. And then you got freaking Brad Raffensperger running for governor, and I think he was at the tip of the pinnacle of election mismanagement. I'll put it that way, mildly.
I would agree that this all has to see the light of day. I also want to tell you that there are investigations going on, and unfortunately, because it's a criminal investigation, it's not released for public consumption. So I don't want to discuss the nature and range of those investigations, but we've been in discussions with U.S. attorneys' offices, the FBI, the DOJ, principals in the Civil Rights Division. AB has other, dozens of other election integrity organizations that have hard data.
Praise
The
the Lord.
whistleblower attorneys that are involved in this case are also helping get this information to the DOJ. So
Praise God.
it's
Thank you.
happening. I hope no one blocks it. That's all I can say.
Well, I look. I think Trump is still pissed off about it. I don't think he's going to block it. In fact, I think just the opposite. My paradigm is, and I did a YouTube video on it a couple of weeks ago. It's the best video, uh, the most well received video that we've ever done. Tens of thousands of people viewed it and commented on it. But it is my belief that Donald Trump is dismantling the deep state one brick at a time, and he's not doing it combatively. He's fighting, and they don't even know they're in a fight. But Russia, 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 I think was part one. I think the 2020 election may well be part two. I think Butler and West Palm Beach could be part three. And I just hope and pray that the assassination of Charlie Kirk that we will get the truth, and that could be part four. Now you do that, you expose the bad people. I think the reaction from the American people will be so overwhelming that the whole house of cards will collapse, and maybe we can get this country back to a high ground of a moral place where we do have the right to lead the world.
We need the
So
rule of law.
yeah, just follow the law that we've got. We don't need new laws. Georgia passed 202, and that was greeted with all sorts of pushback and misinformation from the liberals and the left. They moved Major League Baseball All-Star game out of Georgia and moved it to Colorado, where they have more restrictive voting laws than Georgia did even after Senate Bill 202. It's just a freaking farce, and it can really make you angry. Now, what about 2024? We won big. Was it a fair election? Was it an accurate election? What changed between 2020 and 2024?
Well, I think there's several components. I mean, some people are arguing that there was a blockage of the data manipulation. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. I haven't seen the evidence of this at this point. I'm not saying that there wasn't a blockage, but we also know other things. We know that certain components of the mischief were very difficult to implement with as many eyes that were on the system as there were. The other part of it is that you have to deal with is that Kamala was not a very popular person, no matter what anybody wants to argue. She was not a good candidate on the Democrat side. Even James Carville says this.
Well,
So,
she probably wasn't popular with the deep state. Maybe they
yeah, she
just
wasn't popular
stepped
with
aside
anyone
and
except
allowed the
herself.
election to be fair. But then you got that pesky little problem of Butler, and somebody wanted to get rid of President Trump, the candidate,
No
which is
question.
still very disturbing to me. And I think the answers that we've been fed are just a bunch of baloney. And I want the truth. I really want the truth. Last question, Harry. Well, sit next to the last question. Um, I interviewed someone here just a couple of months ago. They were from a little town, Screven, Georgia, I think. Um, in what county? Screven County. I thought it was Screven, Georgia, and some other county. Screven County. What's the county seat of Screven County? Doesn't matter. Anyway, they post their election results in the blockchain. I think that is brilliant because if you upload them to the blockchain while you're transmitting them to the Secretary of State, there can't be any finagling with the vote tabulations, at least because they're now published on millions of computers around the globe. You've got a permanent record. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, so the blockchain approach is very interesting. It has to be end to end, though, just to be clear. You have to protect things all the way from the point of origination of the data to the point of aggregation and dissemination of the aggregate data. And so there are challenges. You have to have an auditable system from beginning to end. And I'm all in favor of it. But I'll give you an example of such control systems in Georgia. When Garland Favorito, my friend,
Mine
uh,
too.
does the
I call him
examination
Cousin Garland.
of the images, the cast vote record, and the images captured, they find images that do not have correct digital signatures. There is no way that an image gets an incorrect digital signature and is scanned as part of the batch that the rest of them are purported to be scanned in. It's not possible. So somebody inserted images into that stream. Now, was there
Wow.
some sort of secondary correction process or whatnot? You can't tell because no one maintains an end-to-end blockchain, as you said. The security around the images is pretty good, but where they came from, nobody has any idea. So when I talk about end-to-end security, you have to be careful. The blockchain has to go all the way from the raw tabulator output or the raw ballot marking device output to the totals at the state. And you ought to be able to take all the uploaded files add them together, and it should be the same as the Secretary of State's reporting for the whole state. And if you can't do that reconciliation, you don't have a secure system. It doesn't tell you how bad the system is, it just tells you that the system is broken. Have they changed 100,000 records? We don't have any idea. This is how you find, financial fraud, is you compare the accounts payable payments to the purchase orders, right? But then if someone messes with the purchase order side of the equation, something's wrong, but you don't know for sure how much mischief they've done until you do a full reconciliation. And Raffensperger in Georgia pulls the stunt that they're all doing with these so-called risk limiting audits, where they get to choose what gets looked at. It's not comprehensive. It's not end to end. It's designed to allow the fraud or the mistakes or the errors. Again, are they missing in action? Is it malice, ignorance, or apathy? It doesn't matter. It's all illegal.
Well, it is a complicated subject. It seems like it was a lot simpler back in the day of when we had landslide Lyndon, and we were just counting paper ballots and stuffing those boxes. But anyway, I appreciate the work that you're doing. Keep up the good fight. I hope that you will continue to help bring fair, free, honest elections to our country. And just the last question: you're out there in Missouri on the Mississippi Flyway. Are you a duck hunter?
I am. There's a pheasant on my wall behind me.
Oh, that's a pheasant? Oh, I fell for it. I thought it was a duck. And I guess that's why I sometimes shoot hens, which you couldn't do.
So I'm from Kansas, and when I was 12 years old, I started shooting birds,
I
and
got
I
it.
eat them for all the people that are turning their nose up. I don't let them go to waste.
Well, I always eat my kill as well. And just last point: have dog, will travel. That's it, Harry. Thank you so much for coming on The Truth today, and keep up the good work. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Talk to you soon. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye bye.